But let's get into our team selection then, a real big one for this game. Alisson Becker in goal. Sean, I'll throw over the defence to you. I think it's going to take some sort of piecing together all of this.
Yeah, it is probably more than ever a kind of domino effect, isn't it, of availability and suitability to certain positions. Well, picking up on what I said before then, to jump ahead to my midfield almost to explain my defensive selections, I was initially thinking, you need James Milner at right back because you want an experienced and wise head in that back line, especially if we're going to have to chop and change a little bit. But I'm having him in midfield, which we'll come on to, which means Nico Williams is at right back. And I think as we talk about Vardy, and when you look at the rest of the defence, without Van Dijk, without Gomez, without Trent as well, Williams is probably going to be the paciest of the four I'd select. So having him there for those counter-attacks, if Liverpool do at times, decide to get high up the pitch and bring that line forward a little bit. So I'd have him in. I think in the middle, as Doyley said before, that those, we're guessing really because Klopp just kind of said in his press conference, we'll see. But it did look for all the world from the training images like Fabinho was a bit further on than some of the other guys who were just coming back from injury. Matip, again, obviously retired from international football. He seemed to be fitting well. So I'm hoping that Matip and Fabinho could be the central pairing. And I think Doyle makes a great point of how well Fabinho dealt with Timo Werner. It was excellent in that game. He was, he really kind of matched him for strength and pace most of the time. And obviously Liverpool kept the clean sheet, so it was good. And then, Robertson, who I do think is a bit of a kind of ticking time bomb. Like, I wasn't that surprised to hear him talk about soreness and hamstring issues when he was on this international break, where it mustn't be forgotten Scotland had 3 competitive games, which kind of never normally happens on an international break, does it? Which is an extra twist to this season. But he's played more minutes than any other Red for Liverpool so far this campaign. So there's got to be a point, as alluded to earlier, where Tsimikas comes in. But I absolutely don't think this is it, especially when you haven't got Trent. Him going forward will be key. So that's my back four with Milner initially in there, but now he's gone forward into midfield. So we'll come on to that.
Doyley, what about you?
Right. Well, I was initially going to put Milner at right back, but now I've kind of been taken out of it. The thing is, there's so many variables, isn't there? We don't know how fit some of these players are. But the interesting thing for me, did you know Alisson wasn't in goal for Brazil in any of their games? It was Ederson that was in goal. When you consider that Alisson's meant to be first choice, he's kind of lost his place now because he had his injury in the last international problem. So it looks like, is that good for Liverpool? I would imagine it would be. Anyway, so Alisson in goal, as we said. Robertson's got to play. I think Tsimikas plays against Atalanta. Matip's got to play. I think if Fabinho's got one leg, he'll probably play. Right back. If Fabinho doesn't play, I think he might go with Reece Williams simply because he's faster than Nat Phillips, and I can't see Leicester putting in loads of long balls and heading it, because that's why he did very well against West Ham. He dominated, wasn't it? Haller, who's considering his size, isn't the most aggressive of forwards, so he's able to do that. I think Vardy's a different challenge along with some of the midfielders. So if Fabinho isn't fit, then again, is Williams fit? I think he probably is, to be honest. And then I'm gonna go. I don't know. I'm not sure whether I can commit to Nico Williams being right back simply because he hasn't played for Liverpool for quite a while. I know he did well for Wales, and he's got the pace. I can see what Sean's saying. Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, he played the 2 League Cup games. I think he came on against Atalanta, didn't he, for the last 6 or 7 minutes?
Oh, he did.
And maybe one good decent clearance. So, you see, because it's a difficult one. Then, if you put Nico Williams on the right, then you're going to have to put somebody really steady, either on the right of the midfield or on the right wing, because you don't want them just Leicester bombing down there, especially if Albrighton plays. So I really like Albrighton, and if he tends to do something against Liverpool, whether it's sets up a goal or foul Mane for the winning penalty, he does something. So I'm going to Williams. Yeah, Nico Williams is playing. There you go. Otherwise, this podcast will go on forever. Just me thinking.
Yeah, I'm gonna go very different. I think it hinges around sort of that midfield controller, because obviously Henderson's out. We don't know about Thiago, more than likely probably out. Fabinho, if you don't have him for there, who do you have for there? I'm gonna go. Here we go. My back four: Milner at right back, centre halves Matip and Robertson, and Tsimikas at left back. That's what I'm going to say. Lack of long balls forward, as you mentioned, Doyley, and Robertson's got a pace to play inside. That's
Robertson. That's the one. Yes, the Robertson who's like dodgy hamstrings. All right, let's put him centre back so he can just run against Vardy. Yeah, good plan. Yeah, that's
the way I'm. That's the way I'm going.
You're just trying to injure all of Liverpool players, aren't you?
No. That's the way I'm going. And I think actually centre back's the least taxing position on the body. I mean, it's not proven that way for Liverpool this season. But anyway, into the midfield, Liverpool this season, Sean, against sort of 3-man or 5-man defences have often gone 4-2-3-1. Leicester, are we the 3-1 return for you, or how's your midfield looking?
No, I was thinking 4-2-3-1, but I don't think you can quite commit to that. I think there was the way, as much as I was impressed with the performance against City, there were times when Liverpool fell into a defensive shape, it didn't quite click, and you could really see how exposed it was, the back four and then the two. And when City were just pouring forward, particularly from like full back and wide areas, they were getting in relatively easily, or much more easily than I think Klopp would have liked. So I think that really depends on the two. And if you had Henderson fit, I think it would be a possibility. If you absolutely knew that Thiago was fit and firing and could play alongside Wijnaldum, again, possibly. But I think you need that three in midfield. And then going back to my kind of Williams-Milner dilemma, I think Milner is in there. And exactly like what Doyley said in terms of needing that solidity ahead of Williams, I'd have Milner on the right. I'd have Wijnaldum on the left. You know, I know he's played very well again on the international break, but he's Mr. Reliable, isn't he? And I'm hoping he just comes back fit and firing. And then, this is where I may be cheating slightly, because I'd have Thiago as my third one, which it may be very unlikely.
Well, I'd like Van Dijk centre back.
So Robertson playing centre half, not so silly now.
You can't do that.
Well, okay. Naby Keita would be my reserve choice if Thiago's out. But I do think if there's a glimmer for him, I know you could maybe make the argument for Atalanta, but given what we said about Leicester, I know they'd have the bodies around him, and you know, with Vardy on his own up front, there would be times where it could be quite congested. But given their counter-attacking nature, given the fact that it's a game at home, and I think with Wijnaldum and Milner either side of him, I think if Thiago was 80-85%, you could get a good hour out of him. And I do think without Trent Alexander-Arnold, with Robertson, you know, not question marks over his fitness, I think it sounds like he'll be okay. Klopp didn't express any concern about him today, but Liverpool will need a bit of threat from central areas. You need someone who, with a bit of time on the ball, can pick a pass and potentially break down this five of Leicester, as we talked about how they'll probably set up at the back. I think it is cheating a little bit, but I think if he's marginal, I would put him in there with two. I'd put him in there with two bodyguards and hope.
You're getting a lot of optimism.
I know his actual legs. Yeah.
I was going to say, Sean, I know you're optimistic at the best of times, but that picture of the wave from him, giving you 80% fitness from a wave, I don't know where you're getting that one from.
He walked up from stairs as well, to be fair. So
true.
He can get through an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Doyley, what's your midfield setup?
It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one. I think by default we're basically going back to. You got to look at a slightly bigger picture, in the sense that whoever plays in midfield, if it's Milner, which it will be, I think Milner and Wijnaldum are definitely playing, and I think they'll play kind of in a two-y thing. Not that I'm saying they're going to play 4-2-3-1, but they'll be kind of more sat back as Milner on the right. He'll keep an eye on that. I think Milner probably won't last 90 minutes. I think whoever the third midfielder is might last 90 minutes, depending on who it is. And I would go Keita as the third one, but also say to him, because we'll come up to the forward line in a bit, and I'd say to him, Brighton, it's your job to get up there and help those three. You get up there and you get those passes going, and you start linking the play, because he had a decent game. Pretty sure he played in the 4-0, didn't he? I'm pretty sure he played in that one. I think Wijnaldum had a good game in that one. And Keita definitely came on when they won 2-1 the previous season at Leicester and did all right in the last 20 minutes, I think. So, and he's got a bit of previous with Leicester as well in this fixture, because it was should have had the penalty 2 seasons ago when he ended up. I think it was Pereira fouled him and he had the shot was saved. And if they get the penalty, and Liverpool always score their penalties, then Liverpool would have won the league. So Keita's fault he didn't win the league. No, it's a joke, by the way. For anybody writes in, that is clearly a joke. It was the referee's fault for not giving the penalty. So yeah, Keita for the 3. But then you've got Curtis Jones who can come on. I think it would be a bit unlucky for Curtis Jones not to start, but he'd be on the bench knowing quite well he's going to get at least half an hour, at least, if not more. And then you've got, we'll go on to the forward line in a bit, but then you've got Shaqiri's another option. He could be somebody who could come into the Keita position if things aren't quite going to plan, and Liverpool need a little bit more. So there are some options. Admittedly, they're not in the areas that Liverpool actually need the options.
Yeah, I'm going 4-2-3-1. Fabinho and Wijnaldum holding in the midfield with Shaqiri, Firmino, and Mane on the left. Jota's my striker. Sean, who's leading the line for you?
I was tempted, Dory said his name already, but I was tempted to try and work Shaqiri into the mix somewhere, because I think, he's had some great cameos, maybe deserve to be rewarded with a little bit more game time. But I think, again, like we said about the fixture calendar, that will absolutely come. But the other thing was, I think, wasn't there a Switzerland game cancelled this week? So I haven't actually completely followed him in the international break. I presume he played one game and then obviously
he played against Spain.
Yeah. So, when you compare that to Firmino, Jota, Mane, who I think all featured in 2 games, there's potentially an argument to throw him in. But I'm going to resist, partly because as well, if you're playing him, unless you do what you do, Guy, and stick him centrally somehow, you're playing him on the right. And if that right-hand side potentially comprises, a lesser spotted midfielder and Nico Williams or Milner, it's looking not shaky necessarily. Obviously, there's some experience and talent there, but potentially an area where Leicester would think, well, this isn't a flank that knows each other's games inside out. Maybe we can expose it. So, yeah, I would go, but just to make it up slightly, I'd have Mane on the right, Jota on the left, and Firmino in the middle. Yeah, because I think Mane can then beef up that right flank a little bit. I think obviously Jota's looked great, predominantly centrally, but he's looked good on the left as well. And yeah, Firmino again, he scored, didn't he, again on the international duty? So hopefully that'll give him a little spark. Yeah, so Shaqiri almost gets in there, but I think he becomes my impact substitute in this one and comes on for one of the other fellas.
That's how substitutions work. Doyley, who's going
to be right. Basically, what Sean just said, all of it. I think one thing that happened with, I'm not sure whether you spotted it on television, obviously that was the City game, which weirdly was less than 2 weeks ago, even though it feels like it was 15 years ago. Jota wasn't really getting back as often as I think Klopp wanted, and Klopp was just shouting his name all the way through the first half whenever City were then on the attack, Diogo, this, that, and the other. So I would probably put him on the left, because then at least you got Robertson, and then the same token, putting Mane on the right can help bolster up and add a bit of strength to the right. So, I mean, it's how much Liverpool actually do want to bother about what Leicester are going to do. Obviously, they're going to pay some attention, but they're not going to switch everything around simply because they're playing against Leicester and they got a few players missing. I mean, there's every chance that they could end up with Fabinho at centre-back, according to Sean, Thiago in midfield, and probably Salah would make a remarkable recovery and turn up and play. But no, he's not playing. But yeah, I'd go with those 3. And Liverpool do have some options. I mean, we haven't mentioned Minamino. We were mentioned at the start of the season because he played reasonably well, but he had that one poor game, didn't he, against the Danish side. Midtjylland? Yeah, that's how you pronounce it, is it? I should know. Yeah, and he hasn't really been seen since then. And Origi had a poor game against Arsenal in the League Cup, and he's barely been seen since then either. And he played against Midtjylland as well. He wasn't particularly good then. But the point being is that if Liverpool do need something a little bit different, they've still got a couple of players, Shaqiri and Jones. So there are some alternatives going forward. It's just the defence that they need to be careful about.